What is a genetics fact that not a lot of people know? Cheetahs are extremely inbred. They had a massive bottleneck about 10,000 years ago and had too little diversity to fully recover. Some genetic diseases persist because having one copy of the disease-causing version of that gene can have benefits, so even though having two copies is deadly, that copy of the gene doesn't go away in the population. Since navel oranges have no seeds, they are all clones of the original mutated fruit discovered by a Brazilian monk a century ago. The billions and billions of navel oranges that have been grown, sold, and consumed since are all genetically identical. There is a gene called TP53, it's referred to as the guardian of the genome. It is a tumor suppressor gene and prevents cancer of all types. Humans have two copies, and if one is broken/mutated it causes an inherited condition called leishmania. People with this have a very high risks for cancer, and the condition can be passed down in families. Elephants have 20 copies of TP53 and therefore rarely get cancer. The Leishmania Foundation uses the elephant as its mascot, and hopefully we can someday figure out how to replace faulty TP53 genes for these families. There's a genetic disease called Laron syndrome that makes you shorter in stature, a longer life expectancy, and near immunity to cancer and diabetes. Genetic chimera is arguably the most interesting condition. It is possible, and documented, for a woman to give natural birth but the baby not match her DNA test. Essentially, two fertilized eggs merge at a very early stage and developing into a single organism. Different parts of the body comprised of OBE or the other genome. It's most commonly discovered in domestic animals that have unexplainable color combinations, often, but not always, divided symmetrically. Potatoes have more chromosomes than humans. Twins can have different fathers. If you set aside ethics and set out to do it, it would only take 33 generations to create a human being who was the descendant of everyone currently alive and able to have children. Also, pedigree collapse, no living person has as many unique ancestors as they mathematically should. Every person has, biologically, 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, etc., doubling every generation. 30 generations back without any degree of inbreeding would require over a billion unique 28x great-grandparents, more than the entire world population for 1100 AD. Every single human's family tree is full of people marrying and having children with cousins of some genetically unimportant degree over the last 1,000 years. For simplicity, let's say your mother is 50% Chinese and 50% Spanish. That does not mean you are 25% of each. On paper it would seem so, but you can have any combination of those two equaling to 50%. It's not a clean cut in half. It's a random 50% given and 50% not. Although, yes, there are dominate genes that can give all the kids a certain nose shape or eye color. Still, you and your siblings might get these DNA combos from mom. /U, 30% C and 20% S. /brother, 12% C and 38% S. /sister, 5% C and 45% S. So if you ever wondered why your sister looks more Spanish than you, it's because genetics-wise she just is more Spanish. There's this thing called ACHU syndrome where it's estimated that 18 to 35% of people on Earth have a reflex that induces sneezing due to bright light. When you're pregnant, bits of DNA from your baby invade your body and settle all over permanently, including in your brain. Researchers found this by looking for male DNA in the brains of deceased 70-year-olds. Interestingly, mouse studies have also shown that these fetal cells with restorative properties will rush to places like the heart, kidneys, lungs, liver if it's injured, and can even become cells that begin beating. One of the theories I have seen, but I don't know if anyone knows for certain if this is true, is that these cells enter our bodies so a host is less likely to reject the parasite baby. The first CRISPR-Cas treatment for sickle cell has just been approved by the FDA. Your immune system regulation genes, HLA, have a huge impact on how you smell. Birthing identical twins is not an inherited trait. It's random. Fraternal twinning is inherited, but only from mother to daughter. My mill took credit for me having identical twins because she had fraternal twin siblings. When I explained that genetics proved her wrong, she was not having it. Rolling on the floor laughing. Thanks to chimerism, it's possible for a woman to bear children to which she is technically their aunt, not their mother. 40 to 50% of our DNA is the same as cabbage. If you are from the US with family from the South, you are not descended from a Cherokee princess. Cherokees don't have princesses, and your ancestor was more likely a black/white mixed or light-skinned slave that one of the nations of the Southeast US may have kept or traded with white slavers. These stories are created to eliminate the truth about African descent, or are a simple misunderstanding of appearances. If you do have Native American ancestry as little as 1 to 2%, you have at least one full-blood ancestor somewhere in your family tree going as far back as 1750. Sometimes DNA %s can be misread by genetic companies for Southeast Asian, Filipino, Mongolian, Chinese, etc. There have been Finno-Uralic, Finnish, Sami, and Turkic who have exhibited Native American results because of ancient human migrations within Asia connecting everybody. Native Americans were brought to Europe to show off to royalty. On rare accounts there are people from in England, France, or Spain showing distant Native American DNA with families never having left the old country. These are the descendants of indigenous people. The Lumbee tribe of NC traces their descent by paper trail instead of genetics, and are the result of tribes mixing with the missing Roanoke colony. The earliest Lumbee were, according to Spanish record, were Native Americans with silver eyes and spoke fluent English. The Lumbee are considered a triracial, English, African, Native American, ethnic group today fighting to have recognition. Mexicans often have DNA results showing up to 80% Native American, being descended from an amalgamation of nations called Mexica, that were originally Mixtecas, Zapotecas, Toltecs, and Aztecs. Puerto Ricans' highest amount of native ancestry averages 20 to 33% Taino today. Tainos are one of two tribes Christopher Columbus encountered, the other being the Carib, a rival tribe to the Tainos. Both Taino and Carib are genetic cousins to Locano people of the Orinoco River Valley in South America. All groups are linguistically Arawakan and share common ancestry. A group of Tainos called the Toa Taino may have intermixed with Muscogene peoples by crossing the Gulf, and entering the rivers of the Floridian Panhandle. Linguistically, the Taino word for Florida is Bimini. Edit, Xiximicas also precede the Mexican nation. Since our mitochondria used to be separate single-celled organisms, they have their own DNA. Person with a genetics degree here, most of them. Autism has more than 200 genes linked to it, both present on autosomes and sex chromosomes. https://www.mountsinai.org/about/newsroom/2022/study identifies genes strongly linked to autism and neurodevelopmental disorders #text equals a%20 new %20 study %20 of %20 genes strong %20 links %20 to %20 the %20 condition. During infection, organisms can send small strands of RNA to try to regulate genes in the other organism, both as a method of pathogenicity, and as a method of defense. https://www.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov/pmc/article/pmc5720367. Your genes influence a lot about your future, but not everything. Your environment will change expression of your genes, and a diagnosis of a genetic condition doesn't mean you will experience the same symptoms as someone else with the same mutation as you. Your hair shape changes with hormones. Transposons exist. Some DNA fragments can get cut out of the genome and be inserted in a different part. This can be used in knockout screening. If you introduce a transposon to a bacterium and it grows no colonies, the transposon has inserted itself in a gene that was likely crucial for the bacterium's survival. When you have two X chromosomes, only one of them is active in any given cell. The other is shrived into a chunk that sits outside of the nucellus called the bar corpus. Edit, apparently it doesn't sit outside the nucleus, just on the periphery, and it's typically called a body, not a corpus. In my defense, the word my teacher used was. Also, stop telling me about calico cats like 4 people have already replied bringing them up. Twins can be half identical. Like same egg split but 2 different sperms, so they share about 75% genetic similarities compared to 100% in identical twins and 50% in fraternal twins/siblings. They can even be boy and girl twins. The genes that determine the size of your penis are on the X chromosome, so you inherited that from your mom.